Hey, what's up? I'm Norris and welcome back to another sew along. Now today we'll be working on my latest Simplicity pattern design, which is 3038, and it is a crop jacket with a contrasting collar. Now if you're new to sewing, I just want to brush up on your skills a bit. Go visit our online sewing and design school, which is sewacademy.com. Now once you go there, you can take advantage of our free trial, then come back and sew along with me. Now that we have all the important stuff out the way, we can begin order of construction. All right, like I said, we're working on my latest Simplicity pattern, which is S3038, and this is more of a workwear casual relaxed jacket with a contrasting collar. Now if you're familiar with the old school members only jacket, it has more of that kind of feel to it, but with a different design. Now it has some nice size welt pockets on the side, zippered in the front, and the interesting thing about this, the back yoke and the top of the sleeve is all connected in one piece. Now if you look over to your fabric suggestions, you'll find that across the top. And just to let you know, this jacket is fully lined. Now for notions, you only need one 24-inch separating medium weight zipper. And once again, look at your sizes, match them up to what the sizes is up top. And then when you look at the finished garment measurements, that'll tell you exactly what the measurement will be once you sew that particular size up. So then you'll have an idea if you need to go bigger, smaller, or make any size adjustments prior to making this garment. Now that we got all the information out the way, let's go ahead and go through all the pattern pieces we'll need for this garment. Okay, starting with pattern piece number 1, this is the front. You want to cut 2 of these out of your fabric. Pattern piece number 2, this is the back. You want to cut 1 out of fabric on the fold, which is here, and then 1 on the fold of your lining. Pattern piece number 7, this is the sleeve back. You want to cut 2 out of fabric and 2 out of lining. Next we have pattern piece number 5, this is the sleeve front. You want to cut 2 out of fabric and 2 out of lining. Pattern piece number 8, this is the yoke and sleeve back. Like I was telling you, the yoke and also the sleeve back is all one full piece. You want to cut 2 of these out of fabric and 2 out of lining. And then we have pattern piece number 11. This is the front lining. You want to cut 2 of these out of your lining pieces. Okay, next we have pattern piece number 10. This is the front facing. You want to cut 2 of these out of fabric and 2 out of inner facing. Now this right here is pattern piece number 9. You want to cut 2 of these out on the fold right here, out of your contrasting fabric, and then 1 on the fold of inner facing. And then this one right here is your welt. You want to cut 2 of these out of fabric and 2 out of inner facing. And then last but not least, we have pattern piece number 4, which is the pocket facing. You want to cut 2 of these out of your lining. And then pattern piece number 3, you want to cut 2 of these out of your fabric. Okay, so once you have all of your pattern pieces cut out of your fabric and also your lining, we could begin order of construction. Okay, so we're going to start with the front and the welt, the pocket lining, which is this one here, and then also the pocket. Now there should be 3 dots here to indicate the 3 dots that's on the pocket facing. But first, before we get into all of that, let's go ahead and prep the welt. Now I'm going to be doing this just a tad bit different, the same exact way, but just the steps is going to be a little bit different. So move this out the way. So when it comes to your welt, you just want to make sure you interface it, because you did supposed to cut a piece of interface for both pieces. And then on the back of the front piece, where the binding box is on the front, you want to make sure you interface that too, just to give it a little bit more stability, because we will be cutting into this. Okay, so you want to just turn this wrong size facing, give it a good press, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so now this is the welt. The raw edge of the welt will be going to the center of the binding box, as you can see right here. So you just want to keep that in mind. And this is the left front. Now we're going to take our pocket facing, which is the lining here, and we're going to match up the dots on it. And you want that raw edge to be matching. And let's go ahead and pin. Okay, so this is how it looks on this side, and then this is how it looks on the other side. Make sure that the right side is touching. So now let's head to the machine, and we're just basically going to base this down using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, starting at 1 dot, which is here, and then going all the way to the dot here. We're not going all the way to the end. Okay, so now we're back from the machine. We have the lining and the welt based on each other. So I do this instead of doing one at a time, because the instructions tell you to do the welt first and then do the lining on top of that. You just create too many opportunities to mess up because all of the different stitches. Now we have one basting stitch through both of these pieces here. And once we align it with the binding box, with the box on this side, on the line here, we only need one stitch to go through there. So you want to go ahead and put the pin where that dot is, and then you want to look at the pin, and make sure you putting it right there at that dot underneath. Now that's a way to be very precise. And then the same thing on this side. Okay, so now that we have the ends, we can go ahead and fill in. Make sure that pin is going to touch that line. Okay, so we have this pin. Now we're going to head to the machine and we're going to stitch starting at the dot and going all the way through the dot here. And because we have this basting stitch here, there's a guide to get you straight across. Now, as you can see, we have a basting stitch, which is a guide to follow us all the way through from dot to dot. So while we're here, we're going to do some understitching just to the lining, that pocket facing, and you're only just moving it to the right side. And then we're going to start where that dot is. Okay, just like that. Okay, so we're back from the machine. I'm going to trim off about 1/4 inch from that raw edge. And then now we're going to grab the other one. Now as you notice, we did some understitching here and I moved it back, and this one is towards the front of the jacket and this right here is towards the side seam. So you want to make sure that you have the fabric one like that. And before I continue, I'm going to go ahead and draw a line. Okay, so now I can match this up with this line here. So first, I'm going to take care of the dot. Okay, so now we're going to head to the machine and we're just going to stitch this down from dot to dot, following that guideline that we made here. Okay, so you want to put your needle in there just to be very accurate. Okay, we're back from the machine and I'm gonna go ahead and trim just a little bit off this one as well. Just a little 1/4 inch, nothing too much. And then now we're about to do one of the most important steps in this whole process. So you just want to fold it in half, you know, and then just give it a little snip right there in the center of the binding box. Just like that. Okay, so once you get that little cut in the center, you want to cut in one direction. And when you get 5/8 of an inch away from where this line is, the top of the binding box, that's about 5/8 of an inch. I can eyeball it, but you can use a seam gauge or a ruler just to be more specific in case you can't eyeball it. And then now what we're gonna do is go diagonally and cut to where your stitching stopped. Now this is one of the steps that a lot of new sewers, intermediate, expert sewers might mess up because they go directly to where their dot is. But sometimes when the shifting of fabrics, you might not be directly at the dot. So you want to cut where your stitching stops. Okay, so my stitching was pretty accurate, so I'm gonna go maybe basically to the dot, and then you want to do the same thing on this side. So here, my stitching stopped about 1/8 of an inch away from where my dot is, just because of the way the fabric must have shifted when I was sewing. So instead of going to the dot, I'm going to my stitching. Okay. And then now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, now that we have the little slit like this, we're going to turn everything to the inside. And then so on the back, you want to make sure that you have the little triangles that you have on the side here pointed outward this way, and then the same thing on this side. You want to make sure that those triangles are pointed outward. This lays flat like this, and then the pocket bag folds over just like this. So now you want to give this a really good press like this, and then also turn it to this side, and you'll see your welt taking shape. Make the adjustments. Okay, and you can give it a really good press on this side as well. So go ahead and give it a press, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the pressing table. As you can see, the welt pocket is here. All right, so I'm not going to do too much because I don't want to shift it. But what I will do is make sure that you have your pocket bag pushed down, which allows that welt to stand right where that seam is. And then I'm just going to pin this right there in place so it won't shift on me when we get to the machine. Okay. Usually in couture or in bespoke construction, they would hand stitch this up just to keep it closed throughout the process. But I think pinning it is just good enough for right now. So now we're going to head to the machine. We're going to turn up on one end. And as you can see, we have that triangle. We're going to start at the top of the triangle, and we're going to stitch down to the bottom of the triangle just to secure that end. Okay, we're going to do it here, and then we're going to turn up on this side and do the same thing over here. So let's head to the machine and secure those sides. Okay, so this is the triangle here. We're going to start at the top of it and go all the way through till we get to the bottom. You want to back stitch a couple of times on those edges just to secure it better. See that? Now we have the end secured, and all you thing you need is a really good press to make that lay flat. And let's do the other side. Okay, now that we're here, we can close out the rest of our pocket bag. Now if you need to pin, you can do this at your workstation, but I'm just gonna put a couple of pins here at the machine, just so it won't slide on me. I'm going to start back at the bottom of this triangle here. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, this is how it looks on the inside. And then when I turn it around, we have a nice clean welt on this side. Now let's move right along. Now we have, you want to grab one of your front sleeves, and with right sides facing, you want to match up your two notches that are here, one here, with the notches that are on your sleeve for the front. So let's go ahead and pin there. Okay, so before we head to the machine, on the front side, not the sleeve, but the front side, we need to make a couple of slits because we need to expand it just a little bit. So I'm just going to do a few 1/2 inch cuts. You don't want to go through to your seam allowance, which is 5/8 of an inch. Okay, so now we cutting that, it'll expand right there, as you can see. so it'll fit. And then you just want to put a pin right there in the center. Okay. All right. So now just head to your machine. I'm going to stitch from one end to the other end using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you do that, give it a press towards the front and then come back and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine. We attached our front sleeve. And like I said, you want to press that seam allowance towards the front piece. And then I went ahead and did a top stitch a 1/4 inch away from the seam all the way to here up under the arm. And now that's just to give it a little hint of detail and also to keep that seam allowance in place. Now we're going to move along to our back piece and attach our back sleeves. Okay, this is our back piece. We're going to go ahead and grab both of our back sleeves. And right sides facing, we're going to go ahead and match up that double notch. And just like with the front sleeve, we have to cut a few slits, not as much as the front. There we go. And then once you open that up, it'll spread it out and then we can pin. Okay. You want to pin the other sleeve the same exact way. And then now just head back to the machine. You want to stitch down from here all the way to here. Now do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine. We have both of our back sleeves attached to our back piece. And then once again, we press those seams towards the back piece, and then this one right here towards that way. And then we top stitch a 1/4 inch away from that side seam onto the back. And the same thing on this side. All right, so now we're gonna work on the upper back sleeve and the yoke built in. Okay. So this is what the piece looked like. So you want to make them right sides facing up to the top, and you can tell because that's the neckline here. On the other end is just straight down. So let's go ahead and pin where our 3 notches are. Okay. So now just head to the machine and just do a quick stitch across here, using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, okay? Just right here. Okay, so we have our back yoke and upper back sleeve attached here. I pressed that seam open, as you can see. And then also too, there are 2 dots. There's a dot here and a dot here. You want to baste in between dots, okay? So leaving this upside down, I'm going ahead and grab the rest of our jacket, and I'm going to place it right over the back. And then we're just going to pin across the top, making sure you align all your notches, and the dots here should be matching up with that seam. Okay, now we're going to start on one end and go all the way through the back and then down the other side using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, we have the back yoke with the upper back sleeve attached, and then we press that seam up towards the yoke, and then just like we did with the other seams, we top stitch a 1/4 inch away from the seam from one end all the way down to the other end here. So now we're going to take our front pieces and we're just going to match them up. And we're connecting that built-in shoulder and also the sleeve all the way down to the sleeve hem. Okay, so we can start at the sleeve hem here, go all the way until we get to the neckline using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so once you do that, you can pin the other side the same exact way. So let's head to the machine and stitch this down. Okay, so you want to sew your other side the same exact way. Okay, so moving right along, as you can see, we have our front connected to the back of the jacket, and then also I went ahead and pushed those seams towards the actual back and then top stitched all the way down. Okay, so the top stitching add a cool little detail So next we're gonna do is right side's facing. We're gonna turn it onto itself. Just gonna work on one side at a time. And we're going to pin under the arm and then on the side seam here. Make sure you match up that seam. Okay, so head back to the machine, just a long straight stitch, starting at the hem all the way under the arm and then down the side seam. And once you do this one, you want to do the other side the same way and then come back and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine. We have our under sleeve and then also our side seam closed out. And we can put this to the side for just a moment and work on our contrasting collar. Now this is optional. I wanted to a little texture, a little nap on my collar. But if you don't want to use a contrasting one, you can use the same exact fabric and make it look the same. So now we're right sides facing here. This is my interface one. I'm going to lay them over each other like this. And I'm going to pin. Okay, so now I'm going to head to the machine. I'm going to start on one side, go to the corner, pivot across the top, pivot at the corner, and then come down the other side using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so we're back from the machine. I'm going to go ahead and clip some of these corners. Trim some of this side seam off. Okay, and then we're going to turn it right side out. Grab your point turner. Now top stitching is optional. I don't think I want to top stitch this, but you can top stitch a 1/4 inch away from the side all the way around here. And then now you can also base along this opening and prepare it for the jacket. Okay, so moving right along, I want to go ahead and pin this to our jacket. So you want to make sure that you want to put the end of that collar right up against that dot right there. So now let's head to the machine. We're just going to base this down. I like to base it 1/8 of an inch under 5/8, so I'm just going to base it down 1/2 inch across, just so you won't see the stitching when we complete this project. Okay, so moving right along, we have our collar attached to our jacket up top. And then just so you know, I did go back and top stitch around my collar. It just kept it together a little bit better because it was a little loose because it's so thick. So moving forward, we're working on our zipper. So what I'm going to do first is you want to take a zipper. It can be a little bit longer. It's okay. And you want to turn it wrong side facing up. And then you want to put that edge 1/4 inch away from the front edge on this side. Now there's a small dot here at the bottom. That's where your zipper is supposed to stop. So you want to put it just there. Then we're going to pin. And then we're going to consistently keep it 1/4 of an inch away from that raw edge in the center. Now the seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to measure down 3/4 of an inch. Just a little bit more because of the zipper pull. And then I'm just going to lay it flat and see where that stops. Okay, so that's going to stop about right there. Now I'm going to put that same marker where that hit in the same place. Okay, just like that. Okay, so because I put it there, I want to put it in the same exact place on this side. And then also I like to put, I'm gonna fold back and put it on the front. just so I can see it from the front as well when we make the adjustments to the zipper. Okay, that's the front. This is the back, same place. Now, obviously this is too long. Now, if your zipper is the exact same length as where you need it, kudos to you, congratulations. But if not, you will need to make adjustments. So I use this zipper hammer here and then a pair of slim pliers. Now I will link to where you can get these in the description box below. So what you want to do is first open it up, and you just want to take that narrow groove here. So take that and put it right in the center of that zipper, or the zipper teeth. Now, because I'm up here, I'm going to come down one below just so I can have room for the stopper. Take your time, give it like a nice little grip, and then you just want to rip it off. See, this is how the teeth look when you pull them off. And then you see the little gap up here. Okay, so that should be enough room for me now. So I'm just going to make sure I take the equal amount off on the other side. So next, we're going to have to take the stopper at the top. And the way we do that, we take the groove and put it at the bottom and also at the top, and we just give it a little pressure and it will open up. Okay, it opened up just like that. Then we just reposition it down here. Take the pliers and apply pressure to close it. Sometimes I just take this, get a little bit more pressure too. All right, and then you want to do the other side the same way. Okay, so once you have everything in place, now you have a new zipper stop and a new length. So I'm gonna go ahead and just cut these off, but at the top, you want to leave a little bit of tape at the top so you can fold it back. And I'm just going to make sure I unzip this all the way down. Okay, so you need to let your markings match up at the top. And then you can pin in between, making sure that it's still a 1/4 inch away from that raw edge. So on the other side, you want to do the same exact thing. You want to make sure that that placement is exactly in the same place. So I basically like to do this. Okay, so now that we have both sides pinned, we can go to the machine, base this down 5/8 of an inch away from the raw edge, not from the zipper tape. Okay, all the way down here, and then the other side. Before we head to the machine, you want to make sure at the top, you want to just fold that back just a little bit, and then you can stitch that down on both sides. Also remember, switch over to your zipper foot. So if you have time getting your zipper pull up out the way, you just cut your thread, take it all the way up, and then just reinforce where you took your thread out at. Okay, now you want to sew your other zipper down on the other side the same exact way. Okay, so back from the machine, you want to zip it up just to see if it's aligned and proportionate up at the top and also the bottom. And if so, we're good to go. Let's put this to the side for just a moment, and let's work on our front lining, and our front lining sleeve. Now, I've already attached the sleeve lining to the front because it's the same exact process when it comes to the front sleeve and the front of the actual jacket. So you want to do that the same way, and also your other front lining and front sleeve as well. So now I'm just going to grab my facing. As you can see, it's been interfaced, and there are some notches here that we match up, and we're going to pin the facing to our front lining. And you should have notches or markings at the bottom to where we stop at. Okay, now that we have it pinned, you just want to head to the machine, do a straight stitch, starting at the dot, going all the way up until we get to the top using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine, then we went to the pressing table and we pressed that seam towards the front lining. And you want to do the other one the same exact way. So I'm gonna put this to the side for a second, and we're just gonna talk about the lining, the back lining. So the back lining is the same exact way that we did the back piece. You want to attach your sleeves first, and then once you get the back sleeves on, you attach the back yoke and the upper back sleeve together at the center seam, and then you put it all together across the top, the same exact way that we did before. So now you just want to take the rest of this, place it right sides facing. Okay. And you just want to pin it across the top and then pin it across the bottom side seam here and then under the sleeve. So one thing before I continue, all the pattern pieces that share the same pattern with lining and the fabric piece, you want to cut the lining piece 1 inch shorter. So for the sleeves, you want to cut the sleeve lining shorter, 1 inch shorter. And then also for the back lining should be cut 1 inch shorter. Okay, just want to let you know that, because this will not match up, especially this side seam here, if you don't cut that back lining 1 inch shorter. So the sleeve lining and the back lining, don't touch the front lining because that had its own piece. Okay, so head to the machine. We're going to stitch from the neck all the way down to the hem, and then from the hem all the way to the hem of the lining. Okay, so do that. It's the same exact sewing that we did for our jacket. So you want to do on this side and then also the other side. Once you stitch it, press all your seams, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine. We went ahead and stitched across the shoulders and down the sleeves and then the undersleeve and then the side seam. So now we're right sides facing. I'm going to take the jacket, and like I said, right sides facing, we're going to align everything up, making sure that the zipper teeth are facing inward. Okay, so we're gonna head to the machine, and that dot is 1.5 inches, which is the hem. So you just want to bring that line all the way across, and you want to start there, pivot at the dot, go all the way up through the neckline, then down the other side, and then on this side, let me make a marking over here. Okay, that's gonna be the guide to pivot. And then once you do that, come back and we'll clip some corners and turn it right side out. Okay, so this is our halfway mark. You want to continue all the way down to the other side the same exact way. Okay, so we're back from the machine. We have everything stitched down. And then just here on the side, I'm gonna make some markings just to help you guide better. So I'm going to measure down 5/8 of an inch from the seam here. So I'm going to come down here to the corner. I'm going to measure down 5/8 of an inch. As you can see from the seam. And I'm going to cut until I get 5/8 of an inch away from the raw edge here. And then I'm going to lift this up and finish cutting just from the facing. Okay? Now from the front piece, I'm just going to go straight up. And now we have an additional 5/8 of an inch here. I'm going to trim this corner just a little bit. And do the other side the same way. Okay, so before I go ahead and turn this right side out, I'm going to open it up a little bit, and we're going to do some understitching on the facing and the lining part. So I want you to open it up. And as far as we can get in here, you want to take that seam allowance and push it towards the right, and we're going to do some understitching just to the right side of that seam here with the zipper all the way down as far as we can get, making sure that that seam allowance is laying flat and facing to the right. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some understitching on both sides and come back and we'll continue. So you know that seam allowance here is facing the right. We got it laying flat, and we're just going to do some understitching. It's okay if you can't get all the way up to the top, just go as far as you can. Okay, you want to do the other side the same exact way. Okay, so we're back from the machine. Let's go ahead and let me trim the corners at the top real quick. Right side out, get your point turner. Nice and clean. Ugh. This one came out just as clean. Nice. Push the lining sleeves through the sleeves of the jacket. So I'm gonna turn it right side out real quick just so I can show you how to finish up the sleeve. So for the sleeve hem, you just turn up 1.5 inches, which is the hem allowance, and give it a good press. And then for the lining, you turn under 5/8 of an inch, and then you match up the raw edges and turn it down, and then you can just slip stitch that in place. And then once you release it, the lining is going to hang a bit, just that's for wearing ease. And then for the bottom here, you want to do the same thing, but you turn it this way. So you're going to press up the hem towards the bottom just like this, give it a good press, slip stitch that closed, and then after that you want to turn under. For some reason, my front is still like a 1/2 inch. My front line is still like a 1/2 inch too long. I'm gonna trim that off, and then after I trim that off, I'm not sure if it's just my particular pattern piece or what, but you want to double check that front lining. Once I cut it off and turn under 5/8 of an inch, you want to match up the raw edges underneath, and then slip stitch that in place. And you'll be done with the finishings for your sleeve and then also for your hem. Now I don't really do hand stitching on camera, so just give it a good press and then just stitch that in place and you'll be all good for your finishing of the lining. Okay, so once you finish slip stitching the sleeve hem and then also the hem of the jacket here, you're all done. All right, congratulations, you're all done. Now, I hope you enjoyed this sew along, and be sure to tag me across all socials at Norris Dancer Forward, and I will see you in the next sew along.